I request all the executive members of EDPA and all our past presidents to kindly come near the dais for inauguration.
या ब्रह्माच्युत शंकर प्रकृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती शुक्ला
So now we'll be proceeding to our next session, which is a very important and most prestigious academic sessions of the conference.
About my father, about his life journey, and how he has left an indelible marks on me, on my family's life, amongst others. 1915. He was the eldest son of 5 siblings. His own father was a farmer who was a visionary, and he wanted his children to study instead of living on a modest earning and endure the daily toils of farming. As a young man, he studied and went on to acquire a job as an accountant in the government sector in Central Xavier. He was the first one in the family to transition from a blue-collar job to white-collar job. He eventually had a family of his own and had 6 children, 3 sons and 3 daughters. Influenced by his father's thinking, he decided to strive for a better education and opportunities for his own children, which he could not envision happening in Meerut at that time. So he decided to shift his family from Meerut to Delhi. The problem was that he was unable to get his government job transferred to Delhi. Despite still having a job in Meerut, he went forward for that endeavor. To make it work, he used to leave at 4 a.m. in the morning every day. As there was no available transportation at that time, he would walk 10 kilometers from his residence to Old Lyric railway station, then travel standing most days in a packed rush-hour train to reach his office in Meerut at 9 a.m. As he got done with his work, he used to take the same route back and usually reach home at 11 p.m. in night, when most of the family was asleep. He used to make this arduous journey for almost 20 years. He used to see only on Sundays. But sitting for a family of 8 members and with annual salary of a government job, as one can imagine, was a uphill task. Being the sole earner without any other alternative source of income. As an active person in his twilight after retiring from his government job, he worked in private sector for another 22 years just to complete his odd responsibilities like the marriage of his children till the age of 82. As you can imagine, due to walking 15 kilometers a day for 2 decades, he was one of the 50-80-year-old he will never see. He took no medicine for 8 years, never got admitted, never got operated, even for cataract. He did not smoke or had any other set vices. Unfortunately, to our surprise, to us all, he had suffered from a stroke in 2006, and after suffering from such a debilitating condition, he always tried to keep a positive outlook on things. He never prescribed being cynic. He finally left us for his heavenly abode in 2007 at the age of 92. Today, 3 of my children are doctors. Dr. Raju Lochan, who is sitting here, is the eldest of my family, and myself, we had been the founding member of PDP and the past presidents also. From his family till today, there are 15 doctors, and soon there will be one more in many different specialties. 2 young doctors, Dr. Nirud, who is son of Dr. Raji Lochan and Dr. Anubhav, myself, now EDQ members. His great dedication, commitment in believing in the importance of constant learning, a mindset of personal growth, and a vision of providing his children the best environment possible, despite his modest means, so that they can pursue his and his own father's dream to higher education, has in the end has consequently led to great contribution over to the medical fraternity. For his everlasting influence on my life, which lingers palpably every day, even today, I have dedicated this oration to the memory of my loving father. And for all of who gathered here today, I would urge you to celebrate and cherish your own character figures and mentors. Thank you.
So this year the oration has been conferred to Dr. Manorama Bhargava. I request all the executives to kindly felicitate Dr. Manorama. I also request Dr. Lalit, Dr. Raji Lochan and Dr. Shraddha to kindly join us for the felicitation.
So,
Ito. You please HP. ये पेश से कुछ इधर ऐसा रुको रुको सामने हाँ
I now request our President Dr. Anand to kindly say a few words about Dr. Manorama.
Today, we have gathered here to learn, collaborate, and push the boundaries of clinical precision in hematology. Today, we are profoundly honored to welcome a true legend of Indian medicine for our Om Prakash study oration, Dr. Manorama Bhargava. Dr. Bhargava received her education in Delhi, graduating from the Lady Hardinge Medical College. She spent much of her career at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, retiring as professor and head of hematology in 2001. She then led the hematology at Sir Ganganam Hospital until 2016 and served as a senior advisor and head of hematopathology at Medanta until May 2020. A pioneer in hematology in India, Dr. Bhargava is recognized both nationally and internationally. She was a distinguished hematology professor. She has received multiple prestigious fellowships, including the Alexander von Humboldt, Fogarty, and INSA fellowships. She has over 300 publications, has been a principal investigator on several international research grants, and apart from the many prizes, she received the Dr. B.C. Roy National Award and the Vasanti Devi Ameerchand Prize of Indian Council of Medical Research, and a Lifetime Achievement Award at the ISHBT. Dr. Bhargava established the first DM degrees in clinical hematology at AIIMS in 2000 and the Diploma at National Board of Hematology in 2008. Her book, Hematological Malignancies, Case Studies in Cytogenic and Molecular Genetics, was published in 2021. Her second book, Evolution of Hematology in India, A Hematologist's Perspective, was published in December 2021. It's a privilege to have you here, ma'am. Over to you.
My registrar in medicine, in the Department of Internal Medicine, the Doctor of Medicine, as the fundamentals of clinical medicine. I also answer Dr. Lalit, in whose father's name Hardy Pilgrim's ovation, and also some of the speakers here who I have taught or worked with over 70 years of my teachings, the years. And last but not the least, my husband, Dr. Santosh Bhatta, who's here in the audience. I am it. He is a pediatrician and neurologist, an eminent person himself. So, I would like to begin by saying, after all this introduction, that I'm so deeply honored to accept Chico Prakash Pai Memorial Oration bestowed upon me. I thank the organizers for the opportunity to see you all and to be able to speak to you. I was actually first hesitant to accept it, knowing the inabilities that could be reached. But the insistence and persistence of Dr. Amarpurati made me decide to take a chance. So I'm going to speak today on 5 decades of evolution of hematology in India, a journey, and to offer my own perspective on it. It's not going to be easy to cover 5 decades, but I'll try to do my best. I'm so used to my computer. Just okay. So these are 5 decades of evolution of hematology in India. It is my journey and my perspective on it. As the So it is actually not my intention to go into technical details because I'm sure other speakers would have covered some of it. However, I would like to share with you major events and the foundational principles that shaped the evolution of hematology in this country. The people, very importantly, the people and the institutions who in the earlier years worked with limited resources in a developing country. Given my long years of association with this specialty, I could see from a vantage point how hematology evolved and do perpetuate non-existence to such. To begin with, for several years, and I do think that most of you are aware that it was part of interdependence. Practiced my position of great eminence, although I was one of the strong proponents of hematology who made away from internal medicine. But till today, I believe that you cannot be a good clinical hematologist, or for that matter, a good hematopathologist, without a sound fundamental knowledge of carefulness. At the same time, I also believed that a super specialty can grow and come into its own by acquiring a separate identity of its own, yet maintaining a connection with the parent specialty. In the earlier decades, physicians from all over India who had interest in hematology were working in areas which were relevant to those times, like insufficiency, thalassemia, hemoglobinopathies, bleeding disorders. It was followed by later by hematologic malignancies, leading to major advances in diagnosis through flow cytometry, cytogenetics, molecular genetic studies, next generation sequences, genomic studies, supplementing the basic information on peripheral blood and bone marrows. This led to a therapeutic aspects taking a quantum jump, a big jump from an empirical protocol-based treatment to an evidence-based therapeutic approach leading to precision therapy. The understanding of the biology of hematologic diseases made that possible, enabling advances in cancer chemotherapy, radiotherapy, as well as targeted therapy. And on that goes with it, checkpoint inhibitors, cellular therapy, immunotherapy, and gene therapy on the whole. Meanwhile, bone marrow transplantation became a routine procedure both for benign and malignant hematomas. Now, here is an important point. There was also the recognition of the fact that hematology happens to be a discipline unique in the sense that it requires with equal importance both investigative and therapeutic components for a complete practice of hematology. That diagnostic hematology will be integral and crucial to patient management eventually found its place, accepting that a mutual discussion between patient clinical hematologists and hematopathologists would always be beneficial in decision, and most of you are aware of this, more appropriate patient care. Sadly, in many centers in India, particularly in government hospitals, government medical colleges, not government hospitals still manage to do this together. In government medical colleges, this conflict continues. This was actually the point of inflection for the science and practice of hematology in Japan. So now speaking about my own journey in hematology, it began in the summer of 1964 when I registered for the LD in pathology and was given a thesis subject of anemia of experimental burns. It was unusual since those days everyone used letter substantive histopathology. But this probably happened because my mentor was Professor Shadrit Kumar, who was from KGMC Lucknow, and some of you might know of him, who had himself trained with Wildrow, a world-renowned hematologist. Now, in a way, I think the subject of my thesis set the tone for what was to follow later in my life. Harding is the place where I learned the basics of hematology and honed my skills in the interpretation of peripheral and bone marrow smears. An expertise I did not let go till the end of my career. I also used to always tell my students not to be just a microscopist, but to see beyond what your eyes see and correlate with what your patient knows. It is particularly relevant in today's time of precision hematology not to forget that often the basics give the hint towards a diagnosis. My major areas of interest at LHMC were the platelet function defects. Together with other colleagues, we set up the methodology primitive for current times to study several diseases where coagulation was compromised. But teaching both graphics as well as post graphics was a major activity. In the year 1979, after 16 years at LHMC, I moved to All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi, which became my second alma mater, so to speak. That shaped my entire career in hematology. These were the most productive years of my life. AIMS was actually a very dynamic place. It was involved in all spheres of patient service, of research, of teaching. But after when I joined as associate professor, Dr. H.D. Tandon was still when he was the head of the department, and hematology was part of pathology. And the only other person, when I joined, we were just the two of us. Dr. Saraya, who headed a hematology unit in the department of pathology. Uh, because Dr. Saraya and I both believed that we had to have a clinical component. So at that time, Dr. V.P. Chaudhary, who's actually a pediatrician, provided the clinical component to the department. Now, this is the time that the basics of a department of hematology were laid. Till today, AIIMS Hematology remains the only composite department of hematology in the country. I took over as professor and head hematology AIIMS in 1993. So, as it happens in all other departments, clinical services apart from regular OPDs, inpatients, ABR clinics, we started specialized services characterized clinical care, thus hemophilia, thalassemia, renal lymphoma services formed an integral component of service with parallel advances in laboratory testing. Importantly, there were joint clinics between clinical and lab faculty and students which facilitated learning. Then I come to a very important point here, and this was for the first time in the country. Who is a trained hematologist? It led to a consideration of a super specialty degree in hematology, and there were none anywhere. It is my strong belief, as it is of many others, that education and training is at the heart of producing a good clinician, a good teacher, and a good researcher. The hallmarks of any specialty. In 2000, a year before I retired from AIIMS, through many ups and downs, a DM degree in clinical hematology and a DM in hematopathology came into being at AIIMS for the first time in the country. This was in keeping with the conviction that we needed trained hematologists in both streams. I need to elaborate a little bit here more about the training in real courses because a lot of questions are asked about it. So these courses were candidates with MD in internal medicine who spent 2 years on the clinical side and a year in the labs, whereas one with MD path would spend 2 years in the labs and one on the clinical side, hoping that an exposure on both sides would result in a sound, well-informed, and well-trained hematologist. Over time, I know that changes would accrue and have accrued to suit the requirements of different sectors. But as long as the concept holds, it will serve the purpose. The next question, and a very important one, was where would they find the jobs? So those from MD internal medicine would join departments of medicine, and those with MD path would join departments of pathology, hoping that at both places they could help expand services and teaching and perhaps set up small units. In fact, if you think about it, MD courses are foundational courses on which are built structures of super specialties. This model worked well, and today there are a large number of DLs and DLEs all over the country doing exemplary work, many heading departments of hematology, both in government and private hospitals. Then a little bit about the research, since I project aims and research. A special attribute of AIMS was to promote visitors from abroad who brought with them knowledge and expertise that facilitated training as collaborative research with host departmental faculty and students. One such visitor in 1980 was Professor P.M. Maniji, who was Vice President Medical of World Federation of Hemophilia and Chairman of International Trading Centers of WFH. Under his guidance was formed Hemophilia Federation of India, which today has 87 chapters all over India and 2 Hemophilia training centers at CMT Vellore and KEM Hospital, Pune. These centers impart training, both diagnostic and therapeutic. And the Institute, I was the Vice President Medical of the Hemophilia Federation of India. Around 1988, 8 years later, a chance visit by Dr. Ian McGrath of NCI, NIH to AIMS ignited the interest in leukemia lymphoma research. And in 1993, a long-term Indo-US project came into being with Dr. McGrath and me as principal investigators. A leukemia research lab for molecular studies was established, and many scientists impute lymphoblastic leukemia, particularly to define the biology of the disease in Indian children. It opened up large areas of research covering multiple aspects like immunophenotyping, molecular studies, and different treatment protocols as clinical trials. It evolved into a multi-centric project involving Delhi AIMS, Mumbai DMC, Chennai Cancer Institute, and Bangalore TINU, and ran till 2011. Later, Dr. McGrath moved to International Network for Cancer Treatment and Research. After retiring from AIMS, I took over as Director, India Office of IHCTR. I want to make this clear that a lot of people think that collaborating with foreign scientists or institutions makes them feel that the foreigners own the research. That's not really true. It is up to you to own your research. So, but both these people are such people, Dr. McGrath and Dr. Maniji, who were interested in developing countries with limited resources to promote our research, provide education and training for long-term research and understanding of regionally important issues. It proved the point how long-term collaborations and association with eminent scientists from abroad benefit host institutions. A. Delhi, of course, continues to lead in all aspects of service, education, and research. The research areas have expanded to include hematologic malignancies and diagnosis of ailing disorders, thrombosis, and peptides. After retiring from AIMS in 2001, I joined Sir Takara Hospital as head of hematology. There for 15 years until 2016, I helped set up and organize treatment department of hematology, building it and introducing newer technology such as flow cytometry and molecular hematology. But my most important contribution there was getting in 2008 a DNB hematology of the National Board of Examinations, again for the first time in the country, to add to the existing strength of DMs. In 2016, after surrender of hospital, I joined Medanta as senior advisor and head hematologist. Here I was instrumental in setting up the cytogenetics and molecular hematology labs and writing my first book, Hematologic Malignancies, Case Studies in Cytogenetics and Molecular Genetics, published by Springer Nature in 2021. In March of 2020, I retired from Vedanta, finally calling it. Now, it's not bad. It's not parallel with me. There were so many other institutions in this country that have contributed to hematomas. So even at the institute, parallel to the main hematology department, a laboratory oncology unit was set up at the B.R. Ambedkar Institute Rotary Capsule, which has made important contributions, including genomic studies in hematologic medicines. It became a hub of that advanced diagnostics and research. In Delhi itself, the University College of Medical Sciences has contributed significantly to various iron deficiency areas, thalassemia, with several important publications. Institute of Postgraduate Education and Research in Chandigarh. Like AIIMS, it is autonomous. The Department of Hematology has made so many contributions. They are too numerous to count. In hemoglobinopathies, coagulation disorders, in anemias, hematologic malignancies, and stem cell transplantation. There is a DM clinical hematology and DM hematopathology data on the same lines as AIIMS. Christian Medical College in Lucknow. It's an old institution set up by missionaries. As in other institutes, they also cover areas of hematology, including bone marrow transplantation and DNA hematology. In Uttar Pradesh, in North India, the prior to 2003, it was functioning as the subunit of clinical immunology. They also have a BMT program and they run a clinical hematology, team clinical hematology. In South India, almost among them, and I think some of you might remember from those times, or Dr. Selvin Vega, Dr. Robert Kaman at CMC Bangalore. So their main work was in malabsorption and topical stool. At Dr. Kaman, with me, it was really coagulation and transfusion medicine. Importantly, he introduced a program set up by Dr. Mohammed Shafi for the first time in the country. Now almost every center for hematology has a PMT program. Dr. Vikram Matthews and Dr. V.D. George and their team are involved in research as well as running an advanced center for stem cell research. It also has a DM program in clinical hematology. Over the years, CLC Bangalore has become a center of excellence in hematology. In Eastern India, the preeminent name of Dr. J.V. Chatterjee might also know him. He was a trailblazer who chose hematology around 1945, where it was still developing as a full-fledged circuit. He was chief of Calcutta School of Tropical Medicine. So many others, hematologists, others. In Bengal, in West Bengal, Tata Medical Center, Kolkata, was made top foundation to hematology in West Bengal at par with other centers of excellence in the country. Dr. Mohan Chanley established there a department of clinical hematology oncology. It might appear, and I think since you've been hearing so many people here, so many speakers, that almost all centers cover the same spectrum of hematologic disorders. Anemias, thalassemia, hemoglobinopathies, coagulation and platelet disorders, thrombosis, leukemia, lymphomas in their various aspects. But each of these disorders, with time, had their individual advances. In thalassemia and hemoglobinopathies, CRISPR-based gene editing and lentiviral gene therapies, new oral drugs, and you heard about the DOACs, such as emicizumab for hemophilia, antipsychotics, and oral anticoagulants in thrombotic disorders are some of the examples. Western India has a huge role to play in contributing to the beginning and growth of hematology in the country. At a time when there were no hematologists but exceptional physicians, and it is important to note that who recognized for the first time that within internal medicine and pediatrics, hematology required special attention and therefore set up small units in their departments. One such visionary was Dr. J.G. Pai, who led in creating and establishing an independent department of hematology. He was a strong advocate of his practice under internal medicine, but he soon realized that he needed a pathologist to assist him with lab workups, and thus was born the concept of a hematopathologist. There were other people from Bombay itself, J.C. Patel, B.C. Mehta, M.R. Peshwar, Amardas India Agarwal, who are in their own areas of expertise are contributing. Now, PATS in Mumbai is a different story altogether. The Tata Medical Center is a great institution in Mumbai and is an example of what India can achieve in the new world, delivering the highest levels of excellence in service, education, and research. There is an advanced center for treatment, research, and education, APTREP, including advanced laboratories, imaging facilities, transfusion services, and stem cell correction units, incorporated iron, advanced cytogenetics, and molecular technology labs. They also actually initiated the Vardy cell therapy as TLs. There was an indigenous development of CAR-T cell therapy in ALL and ALL. In June of 2021, the first CAR-T cell therapy was performed at ACTRA. The CAR-T cells that would act as drugs were manufactured by Professor Rahul Purva and his team at IIT Bombay. Again, a collaborative proof. In October 2023, the Central Drugs Control Organization, which is an Indian counterpart to US FDA, made NextStar 19 as India's first approved CAR-T cell therapy at KX. CAR-T cells are now widely used in many centers in India. Now, so I cannot really close this talk without mentioning the important role of women hematologists in India. As early as 1868, starting with Lucy Lewis, Betty Powan at CMC Ludhiana, Sushila Swarup Mitra, Kolkata, Deepika Mohanty, Dujivan Garima Punjab, and Siddhartha Kevin from all over India played a stellar role in the growth of it. They were actually the torch bearers who inspired generations of students, both men and women, to choose hematology as a career, contributing to its evolution over the years. So, this, my friends, is a story of and about hematology and of the men and women who labor to make it what it is today. It is also my story of gratitude for having been so fortunate to have worked in the best of places with the best of people, teachers, mentors, friends, colleagues, and my beloved students who are going to write the next decades. Thank you very much.